Number two is we've already uploaded the deck. So we would want to spend time only on a few pages giving you the highlights so that again we reserve more time for Q&A in line with the feedback that we've got from various quarters. With that, I will go straight over to the executive summary. All in all, I would say we've turned it a decent performance for the quarter. Our consolidated revenue grew 11% year on year despite a challenging operating environment and a very high base. Now, just to put it in perspective, we are cycling a quarter of last year where revenue grew by 13 and EBIT grew by 43. So on that 13, we have still grown 11%. And this is despite a severe second wave of COVID. The India business has performed very well, while international market, as expected, saw a decline owing to pantry loading in the base quarter. Overall, India business grew by 25%. India beverages up by 23 with a 3% volume growth, while India foods continued its strong momentum of a 20% revenue with a 17% volume growth. International business, which had shown very strong results last year, both in terms of top line as well as bottom line because of reduced promotional and A&P expenses, this time around declined 13% with an underlying decline of 16% because remember, we have also divested certain businesses which are sitting in our base, namely MAP Coffee as well as Empirical. The EBITDA margin for the quarter was 13.4%, sequentially up quarter on quarter by 300 basis points, but down by 452 basis points, driven by A&P investments in the India business, as well as last year tea costs versus this year, there is a significant difference, and that has impacted the bottom line. Now, the group net profit declined 42% year on year, however, adjusted for exceptional items, because last year we had a one-time gain of about 84 crores on account of the NourishCo transaction that we have done, while there was an offset of about 21 crores in terms of restructuring expenses that were taken. Net 63 crores was sitting in the base. We don't have that. If I adjust it for exceptional items, we've declined 27%. We continue to invest behind our brands to drive long-term growth. So we are close to a 50% increase in A&P in India this year, in this quarter, in line with the commitments that we have made in terms of strengthening our brands. And we gained market share in both the core categories of tea and salt in India. The tea market share was up by 170 basis points, and salt, where we are number one by far, we continued to go from strength to strength, and our market share was up by 370 basis points. We now have a fully harmonized pan-India distribution system. There were a few pockets where we had still not touched it in line with what we had done last September, whereas during this quarter, we have taken those on, and now the entire country is harmonized on one system. And in line with the commitments that we had made of completing the Soulfull integration within 100 days, well on track to achieve that. In addition, we continue to streamline operation and drive synergies, and this is driving synergies beyond what we've committed. We had committed 100 to 150 crores of synergies in 18 to 24 months when we did the integration of the food and beverage business. Having completed 18 months, we are well ahead on the 100 crores bottom of the guidance that we have given, and well on track to achieve both on in terms of quantum as well as in time on the 150 crores. On top of that, we are constantly looking for synergies, including network optimization in India. In addition, we have started an exercise on simplifying the international business, but more of that because that's right now work in process. If I go down to a performance overview and go straight down to group performance, key businesses for Q1 FY22. India business, 1,267 crores, volume up 3, revenue up 28. India foods, strong volume growth of 17, revenue growth of 20. In this 17, very strong volume growth by salt. Sampann, overall top line growth of 12%, but remember it was cycling a very, very strong base of about 50 last year. CAGR still 30% plus. US coffee and international tea, both of which saw strong pantry loading last year in the same quarter, declined both in volume and revenue, but shares fairly stable. Tata Coffee had a fairly decent quarter. Volume was -6, primarily driven by plantations, tea and coffee, but all other businesses of pepper, extractions, etc. have performed very well on the volume and revenue front. Overall consolidated 3,008 crores, 11% revenue growth for the quarter. If I move on to overall group performance, I talked about the 3,008 crores up by 11%. EBITDA 403 crores, -17 versus same quarter last year. Margin at 13.5, down by 452 basis points. PBT at 342 crores, down 22% at 11.3% margin. Group net profits at 200, -42, margin of 6.7%. And despite the fact that we have paid out more dividend this year than what we had last year, we're still sitting on 2,169 crores of net cash. If I move on to the strategic priorities and talk a bit about where we are, just to give you some snapshots of where we are, in terms of strengthening and accelerating core businesses, our outlets. Just one slide back, yeah. So I'll just talk about the details out here. We had made a commitment on expanding our outlets, where we had started from 500,000 outlets. We had said by September of this year we should be at 1 million. We've ended the quarter at 820,000 outlets, well on track to reach the 1 million target that we have set. On top of that, we've started our rural expansion. As I mentioned in an earlier call, we had tripled the number of feet on street on rural, and we're targeting to expand rural distributors. We've already added 3,000 distributors. On strengthening and accelerating core, the big thing is to build brands. And as I mentioned to you, our A&P in India this quarter is up by 50% year on year, and you will see that trend continuing as we move forward. Our tea market share, which is the result of strengthening and accelerating core, is up by 170 basis points. Salt market share up by 370 basis points. Drive digital and innovation. We formulated our digital strategy. We formulated a new digital structure to make sure we are driving both efficiency and effectiveness. And we have started to put it in place. All in all, as I've mentioned in an earlier call, our entire plumbing, if I may, whether it is from a common data lake to a DMS and SFA system, a new ERP system, a new integrated business planning system, and a new analytics platform, all of that in place. On the innovation side, this quarter we've had several launches, including a super light in the salt business, 30% reduced salt. We're the only ones in the market with that. We've launched Chakra Gold Care. We've just about launching 8 o'clock coffee out here, and we've expanded our Sampann range. In terms of unlocking synergies, I talked to you about delivering the 100 and 150 crores of numbers, but on top of that, results per se, our working capital is down by 2 days versus the same quarter last year. So efficient working capital management, and if you adjust for some timing differences versus last year, we have continued to deliver 101% of EBITDA into cash this year. Future ready organization, all the capabilities that we are building in terms of whether it is digital, revenue growth management, e-commerce, the entire organizations are in play, and now A, we are building out the teams, and B, making sure they've got the tools to drive opportunities as they come forward. Exploring new opportunities organically, we have just launched on our D2C journeys, and while we started with Tata Coffee Sonnets, we have now launched 1868 tea, which is a range of curated teas, premium curated teas, and just about stepping out into 8 o'clock. And lastly, embedding sustainability. We have made several strides, including featuring among the top 3 FMCG companies in the recently released CRISIL sustainability metrics. With that, I will just go straight to a macro and commodity overview to just give you a perspective of where margins are headed, because the one question on everyone's mind is, what is tea prices doing to your overall business? So if you see the middle of the slide, that shows you how tea pricing has moved, and I'll urge you to stay in the dark blue line in the middle of the chart. Q2 last year was the peak of tea prices as we came out of the lockdown and a bit of flooding in northern India. From there on, tea prices have started to ease. And you would see that reflected in our business, because in the India beverage business, if you look at gross margins, Q3 was last year was the bottom. From there, from 19, we moved to 21 and sequentially moved to 26, and you could expect to see this graph going upwards. Now, from Q4 21, we did see a bit of an uptick into Q1 FY22. That's primarily the result of 2 things happening. One is there was a bit of a drought scare in Assam and North India, more I would say in Assam than in Dwars. That caused a bit of a uptick, but apart from that, I think the second wave and the lockdowns which happened, people were highly, I would say, tense about the fact that the scenario, what happened a year back with lockdowns, 50% working, reduction in crop, etc., would repeat, and that is why there was an uptick. That said, from where we saw June end, we are seeing about a 20 to 30 rupees coming off already as we speak, and we do expect to see tea prices stabilize, sort of normalize as we go forward. In conjunction with the fact that over the last 1 year, looking at tea costs, we have taken up our prices up, making sure that we are maintaining consumer elasticity, competitive positioning, making sure we are not compromising on momentum or growth. I would say margins on the upward trend, and you could see them coming back strongly in a quarter or 2. Coffee prices on the other side, you are seeing an uptrend, and the spike is probably got exaggerated in the last 10 days or so, as the initial spike was caused by a bit of drought-like conditions in Brazil, but about 10 days back there was frost on one of the days, and people were highly skeptical about both short-term and long-term coffee output, and that's why prices went up. 2 impacts on us, a positive for the Tata Coffee side, and possibly could have an impact on our 8 o'clock business, but fortunately 8 o'clock we are more or less hedged for our entire commodity input for FY22. With that, I will move on and ask LK to walk you through the financial piece.
Yeah, thanks Sunil, and good afternoon everyone. I'll just take you through highlights, and I'm on slide number 37 for those of you who have the deck. It's coming up in a minute. Yeah. So starting with standalone revenue for the quarter at 1966 crores, an increase of 22% over the same period in the previous year. Strong performance both in beverages and foods. India beverages grew by 28%, of which volume growth was about 3%. India foods grew by 20% with about 17% volume growth. So notwithstanding that we had a very difficult quarter, and particularly the month of May, we saw a good bounce back in June, and we are seeing a good trajectory in July. Looking on consolidated revenues, up 3,008 crores, up by 11%. The growth rate is lower than what we saw in standalone because the international business declined by 13%. A combination of the fact that the previous year had a lot of pantry loading, which is not repeated. Plus also due to the fact that we exited some business which we had in the same period last year, which was the Empirical food service business. Commenting on the EBITDA for the quarter in the standalone business is 274 crores, down by 16%, largely a function of tea costs, which we talked about. Fortunately, we are seeing some respite in tea costs, and hopefully the following quarter should be better. In addition, we've had a fair amount of increase in advertising spend during the quarter, because of which the profitability is lower. Similar trend on lower profitability in the consolidated result, 403 crores EBITDA versus 486. So in addition to the points we made on India, it was the impact of lower sales in international business, which is resulted in a drop in EBITDA. Moving on to the next slide, it's just the standalone and consolidated results that we have released. Some highlights from the SEBI format. The point I want to make here is the EBIT margin, especially in consolidated at 11.2%, is higher than what we saw in the previous quarter. While it is lower than the 15.6% we saw the same period last year, there is clearly an improving trend which I want to call out. In the standalone results, you will notice that while EBIT has been lower at 239 crores versus 296 crores, PBT and PAT are higher than the same period last year. That's primarily because of dividend inflow. In the previous year, we had record performance of our international businesses, and we chose to bring back some cash into India in the form of dividend. So that's a big reason why you have an improved bottom line, notwithstanding that operating performance is somewhat lower. Moving to segment-wise performance, in terms of segment revenue, we saw India beverages 28%, of which we said volume is 3%. India foods 20% growth, volume is 17% in that. International business, I just explained, because of pantry loading, the previous quarter was exceptional, which is not repeated. Non-branded business grew by 5% in the quarter, driven largely by the extraction business performance. Commenting on the segment results, the decline from 212 to 151 in the case of beverages is a function of the tea cost escalation that we spoke about, plus some increase in advertising expenditure. India foods lower at 96 versus 115. Want to make a couple of observations here. The first quarter last year was before we started restructuring, and we did a fair amount of change in the structures, and we've also invested for future growth of the foods business, all of which happened in subsequent quarters. Secondly, in the current quarter, there is an increase in advertising, plus there is also investment behind the Soulfull brand. So we need to keep this in mind when we compare. The other comment that I want to make is the 96 crores of profit in quarter 1 FY22 is higher than what you saw for the foods business in quarter 4 of last year. So overall, there is good revenue growth and improving profitability. There is some amount of dampener on profitability ratios because of investment. International beverages, lower segment results because of what we saw, primarily due to lower turnover. So net operating segment total EBIT is 336 crores versus 499 crores of last year. Commenting on the proportion of different parts of the business, India beverages 46%, India foods 26%, and international 28%. So India is now 72% of the total revenue. If you look at the segment results, mirroring a similar trend, not very different, 72% of the profits come from India and 28% from the international business. So with that, I think we are concluding the presentation. So over to you to respond to questions that you have.
Yeah, I'll just take a brief thing on the outlook per se. So while I said we had a decent quarter, and this is in light of the second wave of COVID in India now receding. So we had, for those of you who've been through the deck, we've shown our numbers month on month indexed. So May saw a significant dip, and June has come back, and July has come back stronger than June. International markets, US, UK, Canada are now seeing a return to pre-COVID demand trends. So again, we saw a dip during the quarter, and all the three markets seem to be coming back to normalcy right now. US and UK slightly ahead of Canada in coming back to the normal phase. In terms of business, we are very clearly focused on accelerating the momentum in our business. India beverages, we talked about moderation of tea costs, and we will stay focused on competitive and profitable growth. We will continue distribution expansion and innovation. We had held that back during the second wave because we saw execution issues, but now we will start with our innovation launches very quickly. We do see significant improvement in Starbucks and further acceleration in NourishCo. Just as a perspective, NourishCo, despite the second wave, grew by 90% in revenue terms, and Starbucks was some 350% plus, because by now the team has learned how to tackle the lockdowns, drive delivery, and maximize sales in a constrained environment. The international business, we will see resumption, the normalization of in-home consumption, and we will continue to focus on the growing categories of non-black tea and drive innovations in coffee and tea. With that, I would request for questions. So Nidhi, Manoj, up to you.
Thanks, Sunil. So moderator, perhaps you can take the questions from the Q&A queue, please.
Sure. Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Participants connected on the webcast may type their questions on the chat box appearing at the bottom and click submit. Participants on audio may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may please press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Thank you. The first question is from the line of Abneesh from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, and congrats on the volume growth. My first question is on salt. So you have reported 20% value growth. So want to understand what is the volume growth, and how is the market share behaving in the mass end? Because you have said 34% growth in the premium. So want to understand the 240 gain in market share. Is it primarily because of the premium growing fast, or even in mass end you are gaining share, and from which place are you gaining share?
So thanks, Abneesh. I would say significant amount has come from volume and not in value in the overall top line growth for salt. That's number one. Because salt, I think, we are gaining by distribution, better execution, and making sure our supply chains are much more efficient. That's number one. On the premium salt is still a small portion of the portfolio, Abneesh, but the whole objective is it is significantly accretive to the P&L, number one. And number two, does great things both from a brand image perspective as well as a future growth perspective. And that's why we are focused on that. So 34%, incidentally, I would just like to, the single biggest item in the premium salt for us, and that is, we had held it back till the second wave got over, which was the Super Light, which is the 30% reduced sodium. We've just launched that. So you could see this 34% holding / accelerating as we go forward.
And one follow-up, are you giving the mix of mass and premium?
We have not given the mix of mass and premium, but you could touch base with Nidhi and she can give you some more color on that piece.
Last question on Sampann. Q4 was disappointing and there is a recovery here. But on this small base, 30% CAGR over 2 years, are you happy with that? And within Sampann, there are multiple products. So which ones are doing the best? So for example, poha, pulses, spices, or anything ready to cook, etc. Which ones are you the most confident?
So Abneesh, I said this earlier, 30% is not a good enough benchmark for us. Our ambition is much higher and we are working towards that. In terms of, so we would target very aggressive numbers in Sampann as we go forward. That's point number one. Point number two, if you look at the overall segments which we play in, I think pulses, poha, spices and probably mixes, in that order is the scale of the different categories per se. But the biggest traction in terms of growth we are seeing in poha, followed by pulses and followed by spices. Mixes is still a relatively smaller segment per se, so I wouldn't comment on growth because it's a very small base. That said, I think, like I said, Sampann across the portfolio work to do to make sure we are accelerating the entire Sampann top line.
Okay, that's all from my side. That's quite helpful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jay Kumar Doshi from Kotak. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you. Good afternoon. I've got two questions. The first one is, tea commodity prices are down about 20% from the last year's peak, but it's still up about 50-70 rupees per kg versus the year before. So if the prices remain at current level, would you be able to recover profitability? And you mentioned about recovery in profitability over the next 2 quarters. So were you referring to recovery of on a EBITDA per ton basis, or do you think that at EBITDA margin perspective also you can get back to that 16-17% margins where tea business used to, that generate?
So let me give you a few data points before I get to answering the specific. Number one is, while we are seeing prices coming down, they are still significantly above where we started in, say, calendar year 2019. And we do think that as we go forward, we will, while they will settle down, they will still be higher than where they are in 2019. Now, where they will settle, your guess is as good as mine, because there will be several twists and turns on the road as we go forward. That's number one. Number two, while we have taken pricing in tea over the last 12 to 15 months or so, we have taken it in different spots, making sure that we are remaining competitive both from a consumer perspective as well as from a competition and therefore market share perspective. That said, we have not translated the entire cost increase on tea into pricing. So there is still a gap. And therefore, when the tea cost comes down, we do expect a margin expansion. Now, when we are talking about margins, we are talking of percentage margins per se, and not absolute margins. But absolute margins depends on where the tea prices finally settle. But in percentage terms, I would say in a quarter or two, you would see us coming back to normal levels.
And that is 2020 levels, 1920 levels.
Thereabouts, yes.
That is very helpful. And my second question is, you now have 3 brands in coffee, Tata Grand Coffee, Sonnets, 8 O'Clock was 8 O'Clock. So what is your strategy for coffee business in India? And if you can, you also mentioned about, that a lot of innovations are underway. So would like to hear your thoughts on, where do you see this business and your broad strategy?
So before I answer that, let me give you the landscape of the coffee market in India. The big coffee market in India is in the instant coffee business. And there is a smaller play in the whole beans and the roast and ground, etc., etc. Therefore, all the brands that we have launched so far have a distinct role to play in the different categories. Tata Coffee Grand primarily plays in the instant coffee space and is going after the roughly 2,500 crore market out there. We've got a small share, but given the distribution that we have, given the coffee expertise that we have, given the Tata Coffee brand name per se, we do think we can get to a high single digit, low double digit market share per se. Long way to go, but we've started the journey. That's point number one. Point number two, both Tata Coffee Sonnets and 8 O'Clock Coffee are targeted at a premium consumer. The consumer who's looking for very specific origin and micro lots is what Tata Sonnets addresses, whereas there is a consumer who is more in tune with the international trends and looking for a premium coffee from the international space. That is where 8 O'Clock Coffee comes in. Both Tata Coffee Sonnets and 8 O'Clock, because they are premium and not as much scale as Tata Coffee Grand, we have right now gone with the online model. We are testing out the waters. We will see where it goes. We are learning the D2C space. First of all, we'll fine tune that, and if we find that it has legs, then you'll probably see us slowly expanding into the offline space, but that is if and when at a later date. So very clearly, 3 different brands focused on 3 different segments, executed differently.
That's helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Arnab Mitra from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thanks for taking my question. So my question was on this volume growth slowdown you've seen in this quarter. What we've seen in most other companies is wherever the end demand has not been impacted, let's say something like a skincare or ice cream, we have seen the May impact being made up in June, and most companies have had a normalized volume growth in the quarter. So any reason why you would think your business got more impacted, especially tea? Because what I see is the dip in May was a lot more in packaged tea rather than in foods. And is there any chance that the very high price increases that have been taken in tea are starting to impact the demand at the slightly mid to premium price segment? So just wanted your thoughts on that.
So thanks. So number one, I would say the cost of tea in the end cup of tea, the total price, this thing is actually insignificant. So while the prices have gone up significantly, I'm not sure that has a direct bearing on the volume that you see. That's number one. Number two, I think it is primarily the result of lockdowns. If I just point out to May is when the dip happened and June started coming back. Now, not the entire country did not unlock in June. Especially some of the southern states held on to their lockdowns till I think about the third week of June, and very stringent lockdowns. And in tea, remember, a significant portion of consumption happens out of home, either in the tea stalls or in the restaurants, etc. Even the restaurants, etc., even after opening up, are still at a 50% capacity. So that has an impact. Like I said, June has been better than May and July has been better than June. We're just hoping that this is the start of a trend where everything comes back to normal, but keeping fingers crossed.
Okay, understood. That's very clear. And the second question was, you made a comment about potentially looking at simplifying international business as one of the future focus areas. So broadly, will this be more about cost efficiencies, profitability improvement projects, or is this more of some potential strategic review of certain businesses? Just wanted a broad thinking on that.
So let me leave you with, on a strategic review basis, we do that every quarter. So there is no new news in that. And as a result of that, if you saw, we first divested MAP Coffee and then we divested Empirical. So this is not an exercise, this is a one-time overall exercise to look at the entire international business and figure out where we can simplify various things that we do. This is not a strategic review per se, but you could expect the end result to be driving efficiency and effectiveness.
Okay, got it. Sir, one last question on your standalone EBITDA margins are almost back to what they were before the tea commodity inflation started. Now, if you recover your gross margins from here, would you expect ad spends to also kind of go up back to the 7-8% levels? Or do you think you could end up at a significantly higher new normal of margins once you've recovered your gross margins back to the old levels? That was my last question.
So I would just leave you with one of our stated strategic objective is to strengthen our brands and make sure we are putting enough fuel behind our brands. We've already demonstrated this quarter despite being under pressure, we have still upped the ante in India and upwards of 50% increase on A&P. You would see that trend going up. That said, we've got our entire stakeholders, shareholders, board, everyone to manage. So we will make sure that we are delivering good top line growth, making sure that we are doing the right things to build the business for the future while delivering short-term results.
Okay, thanks so much. That's it from my side. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Percy Panthaki from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. My question is on the tea prices and how the companies would respond to that. So typically we have seen that tea is a very competitive segment, and when the tea prices come down, the smaller players or sometimes even the slightly larger players pass on the benefits to the consumer. So what is your read on the situation? Do you think anything has changed because of COVID, that like the small players have fallen by the wayside and therefore you have better pricing power? Or, I mean, just trying to understand what gives you the confidence that if tea prices come down, there won't be a pass-through to the consumers.
So Percy, let me just say, I don't think we made a statement saying if tea prices come down, it will not be a pass-through. There will be a fine balance. There will be a pass-through, there will be some part of holdback, but I'm not trying to second guess what will happen in the future. That's number one. Number two, we have said very, very clearly that we will strengthen both our execution as well as brands going forward, and therefore we should be on a stronger wicket when we go out to the market. Just as a perspective, this quarter we have gained share 170 basis points compared to last year. And please remember, this is in spite of having an intense competition. This is in spite of having the large competitors, small competitors, everyone per se. Again, the pricing actions that we have taken, it is not one size fits all. There are geographies in the country where we have dropped prices in this quarter. There are geographies in the country where we have taken prices up in the quarter. So depending on what we want to achieve market by market, we are going surgical behind it while making sure we are keeping the full portfolio in sight, not to lose the total margins and deliveries that we have to do.
Right. And while you said that you would come back very soon to the EBITDA margin which you used to do before the inflation hit, I'm sure that that's not the end objective. I mean, even before the inflation hit, what margins you had, you would want to expand on those margins. So would you give some kind of idea as to, in the medium term, what kind of EBITDA margins you would consider reasonable for your tea business and for your salt business?
So, firstly, I'll just leave you with, we've got more internal pressure to deliver good profitability than outside pressure, right? So we will continue to make sure that we are delivering top-notch results. Like I said, I've always made this statement, and we will make sure that we are gaining market share, driving strong double-digit top line, keeping costs very, very tight, and making sure that there is a flow-through on the bottom line. So as we get to scale and keep our fixed costs constant, you should start seeing the shape of the P&L come back very strongly.
Right, sir. And my last question is that in terms of the growth of the India tea business and the market share gain, which would you say are your sort of top performing or best growing states in India?
So ideally, the larger states is where you should grow to make the biggest impact. So this is scattered across the place. Most of the southern states and some of the northern states are the big picture, apart from a few in the west. That said, we've got a very clear state-by-state objective, state-by-state strategy, including which brand to play in what state at what pricing, to make sure that when we put the whole picture together, we're landing up on top.
Right, sir. That's all from me. Thanks and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tejas Shah from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. So my first question pertains to cost synergies and other expenses. So last 4 quarters since inflation started or hyperinflation started, we did very well to absorb GM pressure at EBITDA level. But last 2 quarters, that element is missing. And you had called out that there was some one-off cost in last quarter's other expenses or employee both because of some integration and capability building costs. So just wanted to understand on that line item in particular.
If you're looking at employee costs per se, you would see last quarter to this quarter it is broadly constant, and this is despite the fact that we've given salary increases, etc., and built extra capability to boot. But I'll ask LK to come in and comment.
Yes, I think you should just, there are different elements when you look at quarter to quarter. Overall, the message, I think I made the point, is that the margin, right, at 11.3, I think are better than where we ended on a consolidated basis last year. Right? And that is what I think should be the focus, because the shape of things would change from quarter to quarter.
And if I can just add, please separate out the synergies piece and the investment piece.
And the point I made last quarter was also that there is, when you look at quarter to quarter, there are some costs which you have to account in the quarter, but it's not a balancing with revenue and other things in the same quarter, right? So that's the point I was trying to make when we talk about employee costs. That we have, if you take employee costs as an example, right, we may have increased people in certain functions, but that in that quarter we've recruited, so there is an increase. So that doesn't mean that you're going to compare it with revenue and percentage and the quarter to quarter. Some of the benefits, as we build infrastructure, we increase sales force, we invest in IT. These are all costs. Sometimes because we do a particular study in a quarter, we come in that quarter. That's the point, and these are all coming under the other expenditure category that we've talked about. So don't compare that.
Got it. Got it. Thanks. So my next question pertains to recent changes in the leadership team. And pardon my ignorance here, but most of the changes shared on PPT are also are mostly replacement, except Mr. T.V. Swaminathan, Global Digital Officer. So just wanted to understand what is the digital roadmap for the company, and is it largely internal efficiency led, or you want to expand the same in form of online direct to reach consumers, that kind of initiative as well?
So digital actually is all encompassing. It is not only just driving efficiency within the company. Like I said, we've right now finished laying out the base plumbing in terms of a ERP system, business planning system, a common data lake, setting up an analytics platform. So right now we are at the stage where we are able to collect data from across the organization, but we need to now figure out how to leverage that data using analytics to drive both efficiency as well as effectiveness. So there is work happening across different functions, whether it is the frontline sales to enable better selling, or procurement to enable more cost-effective procurement, or to your point, within the organization, driving digitization to help reduce bureaucracy, enable speed of decision making, etc. Apart from looking at how to engage with consumers, whether it is on media or it is on commerce and online sales. So across the board, so Swami and team are responsible for this entire strategy per se. And I did mention in my overview,
Narishko did very well. If you can share some thoughts on the brand and midterm target here, and are we sensing that the scalability in Narishko is way easier than Sampann, and if you can comment on the margin profile also of the business.
So I would not want to compare a Sampann and Narishko. I would say there are opportunities in both of them, and there are completely two different opportunities per se. In Sampann, it is more about product and price. In Narishko, it is about scaling geography and portfolio. Now, just as a perspective, in Narishko, if I dissect the pieces, all the brands have done well, but relatively Tata Water Plus and Himalayan have done significantly well. Remember, last year at the same time, Himalayan was an outsourced distribution. We took it in-house and started scaling it through. So we are extremely bullish about where Narishko can go, because especially like I said, despite the lockdown, we have grown 90% on Narishko. So the objective for them is not percentage growth, it is multi-fold growth. And that is what the team is focused on.
That's all from my side, and thanks and all.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sumant Kumar from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. So my question is regarding the food business margin. So we have seen in past 2 quarters 13.5%, 13.6% kind of margin. But when going by the data of the Q2 and Q3 of 21, the margin was in the range of 15 to 16%. So can you talk more about what is the sustainable margin in the food business going forward?
No, I think we would certainly improve from where we are. And remember that we are, let me again repeat, we are investing on Soulful, we are investing on faster growth in Sampann, right? And we are investing in, we talked of digital as an example, right? We are investing in digital, and some of the costs will also have to be borne by the food business, right? So the return, if we take these three examples, the return will come from growth for Soulful as well as the Sampann portfolio, and digitization will accelerate revenue growth or reorient the structure to get cost savings, right? But that won't happen in a quarter. So long story short, it is impacted by some of these initiatives, and we expect to get to the earlier margins or improve on going forward.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moderator, we'll go to the webcast and take a couple of questions from there.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a question from Aditya at Goldman Sachs. He's asking, why is there such a pronounced impact for India beverages in May and June? Was this supply driven or demand driven?
Yeah, so Essentially, I think I did allude to it in an earlier answer. This was not a supply-driven issue per se. As in this year, there was no issue of raw tea and therefore finished goods and package. But that said, there was severe challenge on last mile logistics as infection spread across the board, both within our team and across different partners, including distributors, CNFA, etc., etc. So that was one big challenge. But I think the real impact in terms of volume, etc., that you see is driven more by the fact of the lockdowns, fact that a significant amount of consumption happens out of home, in restaurants, the tea stalls on the roads, etc. And in several parts of the country, it was almost a total standstill. So I would say demand driven, but it is not as in consumers drop demand, it is simply because the demand was not accessible, as simple as that. So, and like I said, June has come back compared to May, and July has come back better than June. So we are, I think, significantly en route to getting back to a normal business curve.
And there is a question on Sampann, and Aditya, I think that's been answered by Sunil in one of the earlier questions. There is a question from Devanshu at Yes Securities on instant coffee. Again, I think Sunil has addressed this question earlier in the call. There's a question from Rohit from Entrust. He is again asking about the dichotomy in volume growth between India Foods and India Beverages, which Sunil has just answered, talking about the out-of-home saliency of tea. There's a question from him on what are the medium-term plans to scale up the India branded coffee business, and any thoughts on divesting non-core business in India and international.
Yeah, so I take the medium-term plans in scaling up the India branded coffee business. I did talk about we've got 3 brands now out there, 8 O'Clock, Sonnets, as well as Tata Coffee Grand. Tata Coffee Grand is probably a low single-digit share in the instant coffee market right now. We do believe if we play things right, we should be able to get to a high single-digit, low double-digit market share, and that remains the ambition. And this will not happen as a result of only the execution that we have in the market or the products that we have in the market. You'll see both execution scale up as well as the innovation pipeline beginning to play out. A very exciting innovation pipeline, I would say. So that's number one. On the looking at the non-core businesses per se, I did talk about saying we look at it on a constant basis. It is not a one-off exercise that we do, and as a result of that, you've seen us divest MAP as well as Empirical in the short term. But even over the longer term, if you look at the company, we walked out of Russia, we walked out of China, and most recently we walked out of Czech. So taking decisions on what doesn't fit in or what is not performing is not a very difficult decision for us to make.
Moderator, we'll go back to the Q&A queue now, please.
Sure, thank you very much. The next question is from the line of Viraj from Securities Investment Management. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Most of my questions have been answered. I just have 2 questions. On Sampann, if you look at the overall business scale, it's still around 500 crores, excess all kind of a scale business. So it's not much of a scale yet. And we talked about, aggressive growth going forward. So can you kind of, give some color, because in last year or 2 or more, we have seen many new launches as well. So, are there any product brands which are more than 30, 50 crore kind of a scale? What's the coverage, of existing products which have been launched? Earlier we were primarily into category A stores and probably in the main metro cities. So how is the coverage now? What is the roadmap there? And, of the products which have been launched, what is the, repetitive sales kind of, any indication you can say of how is the traction building up on existing sales for Sampann? And second is on the synergies part, I think a quarter or 2 back you talked about a run rate of being around 6 to 7 crores per month. How is that now? Just 2 questions. Thank you.
So let me start with your second question first. The 6 to 7 crores that were alluded to was purely cost synergies. We had still not counted revenue synergies. And when we had made the commitment, it was 100 to 150 crores of cost and revenue. And I did talk about, we are right now already ahead of the 100 crore per month run rate. A significant amount coming from cost itself, which is directly bankable. So that's number one. And we remain confident of getting to that 150 crore run rate. Again, significant portion coming from costs more than revenue synergies per se, within the 24 months timeline that we had laid out. Now, if I come back to Sampann per se, the big categories that we are playing around and will be focused on will be poha, pulses and spices, not necessarily in that order. But just as a perspective, your question about repeatability, if there is one thing that I have figured out as a result of multiple market visits, consumer touch points, as well as talking to retailers, is all that you have to do is make sure the consumer takes Sampann home once. Because once you've done that, given the quality of the product and the fact that we deliver to our promise, you would find a very, very, very high sticky rate. So the question then is to make sure, A, we've got the right product portfolio per se, and number two, we are executing it and getting into distribution on scale. Now, just as a very simple example, right now we are slicing and dissecting about which product to focus in which market in the Sampann portfolio. For example, there is Masoor which sells in the east of the country and Tur which sells in the west of the country. So there are different formulas that we are adapting to make sure that we are driving scale which is relevant in that market. Apart from that, the sales team is now immensely focused on making sure that they are driving. Right now, like I said, we've got 820,000 direct outlets. They are now focused on driving distribution of Sampann into a significant number of those 820,000 outlets. Again, we just want to make sure that we get into the relevant outlets, so you'll not see it reaching all the 820,000 outlets, but definitely where this category is relevant and the stores are significant, you will see the sales team pushing in.
So of the 1 million target which we will be eventually by September, and what is the relevant coverage for Sampann brand, and where would we right now?
Right now we are very small in the scheme of things. Again, it is not a percentage growth that we are seeking for Sampann, it is a multiple growth. I would say please watch this space.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ankit Kanodia from Smart Sync Services. Please go ahead.
Thanks. My question was related to the Big Basket acquisition which Tata Sons has made recently. So just to draw an analogy with what happens with us, say a Zomato-like thing, wherein they have all the data of the customer all around the country, who is ordering what, and so how much of that we think can play a role in our journey as well, specifically in terms of Tata Sampann going forward with this Big Basket acquisition by Tata Sons. And has this any role to play in the last quarter as well?
So let me give you two specific answers to that. Number one, in any business, once you have got consumer data, you can leverage it to the hilt in terms of what is the profile of the consumer, how often do they buy, what are the other products that they buy. So there's a whole range of analytics which you can do to it. So consumer data in any form or manner is extremely valuable. So that's one piece. The second piece is Big Basket is a group company and we are working closely with them, trying to figure out areas where we can cooperate and we can drive mutual synergy.
Right. And so one thing again related to that only, what I noticed, I mean, we generally order a lot from Big Basket, and many products which were earlier sent non-branded, but we are seeing a lot of Tata consumer product in that, specifically like say dhania or something like good powder. So how do you see the margins in these products compared to the other projects?
See, as we expand the portfolio, each product is dependent on scale and margin profile and what is the incrementality that it brings to the profile. That is one piece I would leave on the table. The other piece I would say you would find enhanced availability and visibility of Tata, overall Tata consumer products, but more specifically Tata Sampann products, not only in Big Basket, but also in Amazon, Flipkart, and all the other platforms.
And this Soul Food integration is still not done, so current numbers do not include any sales of Soul Food, right?
Soulful integration started at the end of the quarter, middle to end of the quarter. So the Soulful numbers are collated into this, but the integration is just about complete. I would say the real traction begins now.
Okay. Thank you so much. That really helps.
Moderator, we'll just take one last question now.
Sure, ma'am. The next question is from the line of Jaykumar Doshi from Kotak. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the follow-up. What is the profitability of Poha? And is it comparable to Pulses Spices? And, what is the threshold you have in terms of what are the categories in staples that you are not present in, which fit into your criteria from a profitability perspective that you can potentially enter?
So let me leave you with, we've done a very, very detailed analysis of every possible segment that we could enter in the pantry space, which is where Sampann is focused on. And we have made specific choices depending on scale of that segment, profitability in that segment, fragmentation, number of competitors, growth rate, what does the Tata name do in that space, what are the capabilities that we have, what differentiation can we bring to bear, and then we made a conscious choice to play or not play in certain categories. All that I would leave you with is we've got an internal threshold on which we play, but we also got in some categories where the percentages are lower, we've also got a plan on how to move the margins upwards through either procurement efficiencies or scale efficiencies or bringing in differentiation and a premium play later on.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Manoj Menon for his closing comments. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, the Tata Consumer team for the opportunity to host. Nidhi, would you want to have any closing remarks from your side?
Yes, thanks Manoj for hosting us, and thanks everyone for joining and for your time. If you have any remaining questions, please feel free to get in touch with me. Thank you, and thanks from everyone here.
Thank you, members of the management. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ICICI Securities, that concludes this conference call. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.